Welcome back, friends. Now that we have learned about the floor division operator, let us see how we can use it to find the next multiple of 500 in our shopping cart project. Now, 500 here is just a number. It depends on your project that you're building. For you, the number could be 20. For you, the number could be 10, or it could even be larger, 5,000, depending on the kind of prices you have put, depending on the currency that you have used, and so on. Now, before I get on with the actual, the operation of writing code, I will take you back to the table that I showed you earlier when I explained the floor division operation. Remember, floor division gives us the lower whole number, of the particular quotient. So, for example, 7, floor division 2 was 3. Because 7 is 3.5, also you can think of 7 as 2 times 3 plus 1. Either case, I get an answer of 3. Now, the question that I'm going to ask you is that what is the next multiple of 2 once I know that the floor division is 3? Well, as you can guess, the next multiple of 2 after 7 is actually 8, which is indeed 2 times 4, or in the words, 2 times 3 plus 1. Similarly, if I did 13, let's say, floor division 3, I'm going to get an output of 4. And I know that 3 times 4 plus 1, which is 5, is actually 15, which is the next multiple. Likewise, if I did 700, let's say floor division 500, the next multiple after 700 of 500 is actually 1000. And how do I know that? Well, I can take this and add 1 and multiply that by the divider. So, if I'm dividing by 500, I can multiply 1 plus 1 times 500 and I'll get to the next multiple. One more example, say 1332. In this case, the next multiple is 1500, and I can get that by taking this, doing plus 1, and then multiplying by, let's say, 500. So, what I'm getting at is that I can obtain the next highest multiple of say 500 by just taking the floor division, adding 1 to it, and then multiplying again say 500. Now it could be 20 in your case, in which case you will do floor division by 20 and multiply also by 20, but the basic formula is going to remain. So let's go back to our project here to see how this can be done. Remember, in our project here, the variable grand total, and I can run this again. Let's say so I say I'm going to say uh, say 1, then 2, then say 3, 4, and then I say 6, for example. Now the variable grand total contains 559.94. That's what I'm printing here with 2 decimal places. Now if I look at the grand dot, let's say it is indeed 559.94, let's say. Now if I did, let's say, this by 500, it's going to give me 1, because remember, 500 times 1 plus 59 is grand total. However, if I want to get the next multiple of 500 with respect to this grand total, all I have to do is to do this and multiply this with say 500. Now if I did this, I'm going to get 1000, and we can try this on any grand total. It will always give us the next multiple of 500 with respect to that total. So let's do this a little bit more formally. So what I can do is that I can create a variable here. I'll call it say next 500, and it's going to be equal to 500, say 500 times, let's say, grand dot, uh, you know, floor division 500.0. I can write that, or 500 is also okay, because grand total itself is a float, plus 1. And with this, if I, let's say, also want to find out how far am I from this next multiple of 500. So I can define one more variable called say gap 500, and this I'm going to define as next 500 minus grand dot. Now you can imagine that this variable is telling you how far you are from the next multiple of 500. Let us see this working. To do that, I'm just going to put a print statement here. I'm going to print say next 500 and also gap 500. And we'll get a pretty good idea with taking some examples. Let's say I run this now. So again, I'll do the same sequence. So 1, say 2, then 3, then 4. And if I do 6, remember my grand total was 559.94. The next multiple, which is next 500, was 1000. And I have another 450 rupees to go, 440 rupees to go to reach this 1000. And that's because gap 500 is next 500 minus grand total. So what gap 500 is telling me, how much more must the user spend in order to cross that 1000 rupee threshold, that where I'll give a discount. Let's take one more example. Let's make the shopping list a bit more bigger. Let's say I start with 1, I buy 5 units, say 4 units of this. I take 2, I buy say 5 units of this. I buy one more item. Say I buy 5 units of this also, and now I say exit. In this case, it turned out that my grand total was 1454, and hence the next multiple was really 1500. So next 500 was 1500. Notice that's what I'm printing, and I have only 45 rupees more to go. So even though it was very close to 1500, I got only, let's say, the next multiple is still 1500. Now here, this brings me to an interesting bonus idea that you can try, that if this gap is less than a certain number, in fact, you can entice the user to go to the next multiple. So in case of doing, instead of doing one, you may want to do say two, and you will have to write a little bit of a loop here to, make sure that you always go to the multiple such that the gap is at least, let's say, maybe say 200 rupees or something like that, right? But we can take one more example before we wrap this up. Let's say I did say two, say lots of units, because I want to make the number quite large. Say 23 units, say 5, say 14 units. And now if I say 6, then I got 7141 as my total. My next 500 was 7500. Indeed, that's because after this, the number that is divisible by 500 is indeed 7500. And I've got another 358 rupees to go to reach this 7500. Now I hope this has made it clear for you how we are using the double slash operator, or the forward division, the floor division operator, to compute the next multiple. We will continue further with this activity having built this base. Take care. Thank you so much. Bye bye.